The Toronto Blue Jays made a couple of surprising moves today. We were expecting some roster movement, but this was not exactly what we had in mind. So we'll break that down on this episode of Jays Digest, as well as a winning streak. It's four in a row now for the Jays. They've already taken 2 out of 2 against the Yankees, looking for the sweep tomorrow. So we'll have that and much more coming up next. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse, and 4 in a row for the Toronto Blue Jays. Today was a very impressive win. Of course, still some issues with runners in scoring position, still not coming through when it matters most, but Vladdy had the ultimate blow there. He had a 2-run single with 2 outs and got the job done, and he had a really good game today, so we're going to touch more on his performance throughout this episode. But Nick, we saw some roster moves today. We saw a great performance out of Yusei Kikuchi, and just an overall solid game out of the Toronto Blue Jays. It's always a great day when they beat the Yankees, especially considering how tight the AL East has been to start off this season. But the Yankees found out today that you just can't F around with Yusei Kikuchi.
See, as you can see, the more you around, the more you're going to find out.
An interesting new graphic for you guys as there. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. And we're going to have some more of those for you. But before we get into it, quick reminder, hit the subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button if you like that animation. And just to be clear, Peter, we'll definitely be using that animation for against John Schneider at times when he F's around and finds out in the wrong way. So, Peter.
Well today. He did well today.
Excellent today. And speaking of just the Jays in general, let's just get right into it. And obviously, the Jays have made some interesting moves today. And not interesting in the sense of who got called up, but interesting in the sense of who went down. And we were kind of discussing this and debating it amongst ourselves off camera about who we thought was going to go down. And Peter, we see here Romano and Swanson are back. Nate Pearson was optioned. Mitch White was DFA'd. And that means that obviously Mitch White now, I doubt he's going to clear waivers. He's probably, his velocity is higher. He's probably going to get picked up by another team. But Nate Pearson was optioned despite being unbelievable. He will obviously come back at some point. But Peter, some fan reactions here are interesting. This is from John Becker saying, I'm not one to have strong opinions about early season reliever moves, but optioning Pearson, some say is the wrong call with how electric he's looked. And some prefer maybe Genesis Cabrera given the splits that Richards and Swanson have against lefties. So I'll get your thoughts about it. That's obviously the fan side of things. What are your thoughts on this interesting move? Basically, bringing down Nate Pearson. They thought he forced his hand. He did every single thing he could. 9 Ks, 6 scoreless innings. Ultimately, it wasn't enough.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know what more he could have done. It's not because of him. It's truly what the Blue Jays need. And even Bowden Francis was a name that was getting brought up every now and then as a potential guy that could go down because he has options and he struggled to start off the season. But Mitch White was the guy that was ultimately DFA'd, and you still need a long guy. But Yariel Rodriguez is here to stay. He looked very good in his first outing. So the Blue Jays had to make a choice here. Do they go with a conventional long guy in the bullpen? Do they slash that whole thing immediately? Like what do they do? It's not Nate Pearson's fault that he got sent down. I'm honestly pretty ticked off about it if I'm a Blue Jay fan because he was really good and he did everything that was asked of him. He came in high leverage situations and mop up duty at times, saving some of those higher leverage arms. So he did what he had to do. I think we will see him again, but we've seen the inconsistencies with Nate Pearson that when he's rolling, he's virtually unhittable. But then if you mess with his rhythm a little bit, when he gets out of his routine, it's hard for him to get back to where he was previously. So I don't know. I don't know what's next for Nate Pearson, but we know about the injury history. We know about the lack of control. I think this was the best that he's ever looked, and it sucks for him that he has to be sent down. But in terms of who you trust more in high leverage, I think Jordan Romano and Eric Swanson are 2 guys that need to be in that bullpen. There's no doubt about it. So if they're ready to go, I don't know if Nate Pearson's going to be that big of a loss, but it sucks for him because he was really good to start off the year.
Yeah, and they ultimately chose him over Bowden because Bowden can pitch more innings. That's essentially what it came down to. Very unfortunate, but not much else to talk about here. Let us know what your thoughts are about it. We'll see Nate Pearson again sometime soon, but let's move on to the electric win tonight, and this is crucial, and we'll mention it now. These type of wins, I think, are ultimately what the Blue Jays have kind of the team they've come to be. The blueprint for their wins is great pitching and no home runs, not a lot of power, just scrapping together great at-bats and hopefully getting, as we discussed yesterday, they're always getting on base. They're always getting great at-bats, always getting runners in a scoring position. Yeah. They needed a big hit. They didn't get it the first time they loaded the bases, and the second time they did with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who had had 2 hits. He got on base 4 times. He looked very comfortable at the plate. Bo continues to struggle a little bit. Ernie Clement's great. And Vershow had a great night in the field and a decent night at the dish as well. What did you see tonight? I mean, obviously, Turner, good. Runners in scoring position, always great. Vladdy was the one who really got that big hit going there. And it was great to see Danny Jansen back, even though he didn't look the best. It was still good to see him back.
Yes, and he had that defensive miscue in the top of the second inning, as did Bo Bichette. He allowed Giancarlo Stanton to get on base. He hit a rocket to shortstop, but he's trying to backhand that ball and kind of flail at it. You can't have those defensive miscues. That's not part of the blueprint to winning a baseball game. But what is part of the blueprint is getting on base and your big guys coming through. You only scored 5 runs today. It's not an astronomical number by any stretch of the imagination. But who got those big hits? It was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with 2 outs, getting a 2 RBI single with the bases loaded. And it was Justin Turner after a poor at-bat from Bo Bichette, hitting a sac fly to center field and allowing a run to get in so the Blue Jays don't escape with no runs after loading up the bases. That's been a big problem this year. They're getting guys on base. They're causing traffic on the base paths, but they're not getting them across. If Vladdy came through today, Justin Turner came through again. And the base running. We touched on it yesterday, Nick. The base running was really good again today. We saw Isaiah Kiner-Falefa steal second base. Ernie Clement, instead of just looking at the dirt and not paying attention at third base, he allowed himself to score because the throw got away and he was on his toes. He was ready to go. He was ready to sprint home if the throw got away, and it did get away. And he was able to push home a very crucial run for the Blue Jays because Trevor Richards had a bit of a tough inning the next inning out. So I look at those little things that the Blue Jays are doing. George Springer stealing bases, IKF doing the same thing, Ernie Clement, a fantastic base runner. And Dalton Varsho, you touched on it, Nick. His offense is really starting to come around, and he's got to be in the lineup every day. He's got to be playing center field every day because right now Kevin Kiermaier is just not cutting it on the offensive end. I think he's going to figure it out. He's a grinder up there. But in terms of offense, you got to try to find ways to get Davis Schneider and Ernie Clement as many at-bats as you can if you're John Schneider. And that means sitting Kevin Kiermaier right now because he's struggling and he's not providing anything in the 9 spot in your lineup. And Dalton Varsho, you got to ride out this hot streak. I hated how he hit 2 home runs in back-to-back games and then he was out of the lineup the next day. That cannot happen. He's got to be an everyday guy going forward, at least until his hot streak cools off a little bit. But Nick, what do you think of that? Just having Dalton Varsho in the lineup every day and getting Ernie and Davis Schneider as many at bats as possible, and maybe just giving Kevin Kiermaier some defensive duty in the 9th like we saw today.
Yeah, I think this lineup right here is, I mean, Kevin Kiermaier, just in case you missed the game, he wasn't in the lineup. He came in at the end for a defensive replacement, but I think this is probably the best lineup against left-handed pitching, and really a lineup similar to this. Obviously, maybe take out a couple of them and switch them with some other players. I want to see Varsho in every day. Kiermaier is, I think, one of the worst qualified hitters in baseball right now. Obviously, he's one of the best gloves.
For now.
Yeah, and that'll change. I don't think it's going to be like that the whole season. But when you have Varsho on a hot streak, unless there's some crazy matchup that Varsho maybe doesn't want to face or the Blue Jays don't want him to face, he should be in there every day, and hopefully he will be in there every day. And you can kind of make the same argument to put Ernie Clement in there every day with the way that he's been playing. He always gets hits. Great base running tonight. Great fielding. He actually made a very underrated play in the top of the 9th. Or I think the bottom of the 9th. It would have been the top, yeah. In the top of the 9th with the ground ball, and he kind of looked like he barely even caught it, and then he made a great throw to get it out, and ultimately Romano go out of the inning. But, I agree. I think Clement needs to be in every day. Varsho needs to, there's too many decent players. Even Kiner-Falefa on a game where he didn't get a hit, we still saw an unbelievable play when it was hit off Vladdy's glove and he made a barehanded throw to Yusei Kikuchi there, or whoever the pitcher was at the time. I don't remember for sure. But there's a lot of players that are just playing well. David Schneider had a rough game, but yeah, and I agree. It got to. There's a lot of players, and it's a tough job for John Schneider right now, to be honest.
And Biggio's got to get in there as well.
Yeah, best hitter,
like he's been swinging a hot bat too. So I understand that Kevin Kiermaier is making quite a bit of money and he's a veteran. He's going to figure it out, but he doesn't have it figured out right now. And when he did come in to play center field, that was ultimately crucial because Dalton Varsho makes a sliding catch in left field. So that just shows you the versatility that this roster has. but I would like to see them just ride out this hot streak and not just go purely with analytics in terms of sitting Dalton Varsho against a lefty or not playing Davis Schneider against a righty. You got to play your best offensive lineup right now because the defense is good enough to hold up if Kevin Kiermaier is not in there for the first 7 innings of the game or the first 8 innings of the game. Look, he's a very valuable piece on this team, but right now he's just not cutting it offensively. And Dalton Varsho is a platinum glove. He's going to be a platinum glove winner at some point in his major league career. It's truly inevitable because he's that good in the outfield, and he can do an adequate enough job in center field in terms of replacing Kevin Kiermaier. He's really good out there. He doesn't look out of place in center. So you can get by with giving him center field reps. And Davis Schneider does not look bad in left field either. He made a sliding grab earlier in the game, and he's been really good out there. He looks like he's comfortable, and he moves well. And he made that fantastic throw in the top of the 2nd inning, but unfortunately Danny Jansen couldn't corral it. So it's not like you're sacrificing that much defense in left field if you're putting out a better hitter there. So I want to see John Schneider just roll with the best offensive lineup that he can, and that's what we saw today. Hopefully they can go ahead and get the sweep tomorrow because that's been a big problem for the Blue Jays. They haven't been able to step on the throats of their opponents. I want to see it tomorrow.
Yeah,
Do it. No mercy.
I want to touch on Kikuchi real quick. Unbelievable. I mean, amazing. I'm not going to harp on it too much. I mean, 6 innings. Peter, get your quick thoughts. 4 hits, 9 Ks. Absolutely dominant. He's been... We mentioned it. The pitching has been really, really good since that little blip to start the season. The bullpen's been lights out. Trevor Richards a little bit sketchy. Jimmy Garcia is one of the... He looks as good as we've ever seen him. And Jordan Romano, although a bit of a scary spot to put him in the 9th inning there, he got the job done ultimately thanks to some good pitches and some defense as well. But Yusei Kikuchi, who and that earned run was based off of Bo's error being changed to a single late in the game. So just his ERA is now at 2.08. One of the best stories. He's a candidate to be re-signed by the Toronto Blue Jays, and I think he loves it here. So any quick thoughts before we wrap up?
Fantastic out of him, and I think we got to play the graphic on the way out as well. Not right now, but I want to give Jimmy Garcia his flowers as well because he's not pitching against the bottom of the order either. He went Soto, Judge, Stanton. That's pretty scary. I wouldn't want to face those guys, and he handled them pretty easily. So he's been so good. He's been lights out, throwing the best that he's ever thrown in his career. And again, the Yankees effed around with Yusei Kikuchi, and they found out today. Luckily, he avoided serious injury.
The more you're going to find out.
They did indeed, and we'll see if the Jays can go ahead and mess around tomorrow and get a series sweep against the Yankees, who coming in had one of the best records in baseball and were kind of considered the best team in baseball at the time. The Jays are playing very, very well. But that'll wrap it up. If you want to check out a video from me, actually clicking your screen now. We'll see you tomorrow.